Bum Podcast.
Podcast.
Between you and me.
Between you and me.
All right. So, a couple of weeks ago, we were having a conversation, and it was coming from the book, The Get Out Date, the story of T's life, and we were supposed to be coming back the following week, but we had a guest in the house.
You keep talking about we supposed to.
Well, I'm sorry, we ain't supposed to
do nothing.
All right, whatever. So anyway, we're going to carry on the conversation that I said that we were going to carry on, and I neglected to. T keep telling me I need to stop being time dated, but
I'm saying he keep trying to tell people when we gonna post and what we gonna say and all that. I'm like, let it flow a little bit.
Well, anyway, that's how my brain works when it worked. But anyway, so we talked about the Get Out Date, the book, and talked about the lessons of intentionality that were used in T's upbringing. From I guess the day before his birth, the book started out the day before his birth and went through graduation. But one of the key components and one of the things that I was going to discuss during that particular talk was the bridge, the barracks, and the dormitory.
Right. Interesting concept.
Very interesting concept. Don't even know where it came from, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. Right. And so T's whole life, I would always tell him he had a get out date. Probably about the age of 2, we started telling T he had a get out date. Well, I started telling T he had a get out date. And then from there,
which remind them what the get out date is.
Oh, the get out date,
I guess that's my job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right. So the get out date, from my point of view. So the get out date, basically, which is also what the book was named after. But the get out date is ever since I was around the age of 2. My father, has been telling me that, or was telling me that when I turned 18, August 11th, 2018. That I had 3 options.
Yes, 3.
And those options would be either, which the interesting ways, the dormitory, as in going off to school, the barracks, as in going off to join the military, or the bridge.
Because he wasn't going to stay with me.
Right. Which is, the bridge is whatever.
Yeah.
Bridge symbolizes like homeless. But also it's like if you decide to work, all of that, when you figuring out your own way.
Right. He wasn't going to stay with me.
Right. Basically was the premise of that I wasn't going to be with him when I turned 18. So that's what the whole get out date is about.
Right.
And we wanted to take more time to discuss the concept of the bridge, the barracks, the dormitory, and what kind of went into that thought process.
Yeah. Because I still ascribe to it, even though COVID kind of upset my apple cart. But I still kind of ascribe to it. And it's interesting because a lot of people, when I would tell them about it, they'd be real upset. Like, they go in hard on me because of it. And so just to let them know and to let you, the listening audience, know, there was really some thought put into it. And so like T said, we're going to actually go into it. And so the first thought was the bridge. And really the bridge, it could be a bridge to your own life. But I'm a visual person, and so it meant really he was not going to stay with me. We've been setting T up again intentionally from birth to branch out on his own. And they even have this old African proverb that say 2 man crab can't live in the same hole. And so I understood that I was raising T. My bad, man. I was raising T to be a man and make his own decisions and be independent. Or more interdependent and then independent. And it would be really difficult at that given time for him to remain under my rule. And unfortunately, I think as a man of the house, it's important that you have a rule. Mm-hmm. And I wanted him to get to a point where he had his own rule. And so understanding that the bridge really, really stood for, bro, you got to get your own. You got anything to say about
that? Yeah, because when at first I kind of disagreed with you.
I know you always do.
Not in life with the concept and all that, but just now.
Okay.
You were talking about how like it'd be hard to live under the rule, I guess. Which even I feel like with COVID and the pandemic and all that, me being here, I felt like it showed that it wasn't necessarily hard as far as combating rule But I feel, at least I feel,
Mm-hmm.
like it's more of it's time to create your own and not rely on what's already been created or somebody else's system, and start getting in the mindset or be ready to be in that mindset at 18 of you're creating your own. I mean, say what you want.
Look, I was gonna wait. I was gonna wait and
I
let you
mean,
talk.
you just keep smirking at me and
Well,
stuff.
because here's the thing though. If you think about it, so and it's not a sum zero thing. Because I mean, sometimes if we want something like we want pizza or something like that, you'll order pizza and you'll pay for it. But like, I'm grocery shopping, bro. I'm bringing the groceries in the house. One thing I always kill you about, man, like I buy cheese, man, and you go through all your cheese and then start eating up my cheese too. That kind of stuff.
Cheese.
Say what?
I said I barely eat your cheese, but
Oh
go
man,
go
please.
ahead.
But
man.
anyway, but like, so the thing is, setting you up for dependence or independence is all about you paying bills, right?
Mhm.
Like you being to a place where you're really launching out and being this independent-minded person that thinks about first my responsibility and second my comfortability.
Mhm.
And I just made that up, man. But that was kind of sweet. I like it. I might have to write a book on that.
Yeah, whatever.
But first of all, your responsibility and then your comfortability,
Right.
because that's the way I think a man should think. And I'm not saying that's not the way a woman should think, but I know as a man and taking on the role of being the head of the household, I think of responsibility first and comfortability second. And so the thing that I would want for you at this time in your life is to think responsibility first and comfortability second. And the one thing I can say that you're not doing now is thinking responsibility first and comfortability second. And it's not that you're doing a bad job, but it's just that's the level that I would want you to be.
This is what I was saying.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
Because you just went all the way off to the
Brother,
side.
you invited me to talk because you didn't like the way I was looking at you.
What I was saying was
Whatever.
is exactly what you just said.
Uh-huh.
Basically, I was saying it's not about because then you get into it's situational. Like we might not be butting heads. It wasn't about us. We were both going to be grown butting heads when I turned 18. It was more about it's time to get your own when you turn 18.
Right, which is the African proverb.
That's the point I was trying to make.
Okay.
Right.
Well, then why you say you agree with me, man?
Do I have to agree with you? I mean, you can listen to what I'm saying.
Well, I thought you was rebutting me, so
No,
I was trying to help you out.
All right. I was just saying, well, I mean, I will give you that. I did say at first I didn't agree with you. I'll give you that.
Thank you.
I was talking about that specific part of it, of what you said.
Okay.
But I agree with all that whole spiel of what you just said. It's about being, even just with you starting off telling me when I was younger, it wasn't just something that was thrust into.
Right.
It's preparing somebody like to know you're working towards,
Exactly
you're
right.
developing that mentality every day so that when you get there, like far enough in advance to be preparing yourself for this.
Yep.
That now the world looks a little different.
Right.
It's responsibility first, comfortability second, as you said.
Yeah, I like that. But and that's the thing, it was all about. It was never about you saying like dropping you off at a bridge and saying, "Look, you got to live outside." It was really about preparing you, and even to the point that we had a conversation, I guess around your 8th grade, 9th grade year, where we even talked about like what does each one of those things look like.
Right.
Like if you decide,
Scoped it out.
yeah, we scoped like if you decide you don't want to go to college, what does not going to college look like? How much money do you need to sustain yourself? What are you going to do? What are your streams of revenue going to be that going to help you to get to that amount of money so that you can sustain yourself? And so everything that we did up to that point was actually really about preparing you that if you decided, and really the bridge denoted not going in the military and not going to college.
Right.
And so preparing you so that if you decided not to go in the military and not go to college, then you'd be prepared. Because the last thing I want you to do is just drop off.
Right. I feel like that's what a lot of people were like having problems about, were harping about, was the bridge, that whole concept of the bridge, which the bridge was really more so than saying you're going to be homeless if you don't do these two things. It was know that this is for real.
Right.
Like, even if you're going to stay under a bridge, it's not here.
Right.
Set yourself up to do something different.
Exactly.
But even if you don't prepare yourself and it's a bridge, know that that's the consequence that you now have for yourself.
Right. And using full choice when you did it.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's cool. So the bridge was the first, and the barracks was the second one. And we've talked on a podcast or two about even the going in the military thing. And it's not that I'm for or against going in the military, because I did a little time. I say a little time. Military is not for everybody.
Right.
It's not for everybody. And I don't think that we raised you I'm not saying that we didn't raise you patriotic, but I don't think we raised you with the mindset of going in the military. I don't think, because to me it takes a certain um humbling mindset is not the word. Go ahead.
Well, so I would say, I mean, it's just a different type of preparation and mentality.
Yeah.
I guess is what it is. And it's not, I mean, shoot, it's the same problem you had.
Yeah.
Very independent, want to do your own thing.
Right. Entrepreneurial spirit.
Entrepreneurial spirit is the biggest thing. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And that's the way we raised you. And so you know, again, going in the military, we made sure that you were prepared for the military. Took the ASVAB, knocked the world out of the ASVAB. You did a great job on the ASVAB. Even looking at, like, if you go in the military, what would you be doing if you went in the military? So we've explored those options.
We explored all of them pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, but I just didn't think that the military would be.
That was probably the least likely.
Yeah, that's the last resort. That's the last resort. And not even from a serving your country perspective, but just from being an adequate fit. Because, you know, we're all about fit. We're all about, you know, what your purpose to do and, you know, being in your passion and stuff like that.
And probably been my least adequate fit.
Yeah, that'd been your least adequate fit. And so, but that was still an option, because the one thing it gave you was, I mean, we used to say 3 hots in a cot. It'd gave you 3 hots in a cot. It would have made sure that you had the ability to make money by being told what to do and doing what somebody told you to do, and you'd have somewhere to stay. And so we wouldn't have anything to worry about. And so that's why that second option was out there. So you go to the bridge, you know, and do your own thing. You can go to the barracks where they can tell you what you are supposed to do, and you can sustain yourself that way. Or the final one, the dormitory.
Which is where I ended up at.
Which is where he ended up at reluctantly. But anyway, that's where,
you know, it's funny that I thought that too. I just didn't say it.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna say reluctantly, but
go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I was just gonna say reluctantly.
Why?
Same way you said it. You said why?
Yeah, why reluctantly?
Why was it reluctantly? That's a great question. It wasn't necessarily reluctantly. It was more of a business decision than a personal comfort decision, I guess, almost. Because what?
Man, the thought that it was a bailout plan was the thought that went through my head. But anyway,
yeah, almost. Because for me, like, especially because I did music, my thing was like, I'm doing music now, and you don't necessarily need a degree to do music.
Right.
Was my initial thought about it. But I mean, my whole life I've been preparing to be in college, taking the SATs early, visiting colleges, and all of that. And so it was really, well, how do I want to handle my matriculation into this next phase of my life, basically? And I just through thinking about it and even talking about it, and I was looking at plotting out the 3 different things, I was like, this was probably the most viable option for me to set myself up to do what I want to do.
Okay.
Even just with like having that microcosm of life before going into life,
right?
Because that was an option that was available to me,
right?
So yeah,
and just to kind of explore it for a little bit. Again, at the end of the day, we were always intentional, and so we want to make sure that we set you up so that all of those were your option. Like, not going to college was an option, going to the military was an option, going to college was an option. I think college was the easier option for you.
Honestly, I think it was the best option for me.
I know it was the best option for you, and I'm not. I mean, and honestly, like, you know, I'm not anti-college, but like,
not college for college sake.
Yeah, I don't believe in college for college sake. I did think it was the best thing for you, because the one thing about music, I mean, a lot of people will tell you, know, like you said, you don't necessarily need music to go to college, but it broadens your horizon as it pertains to music. Man, look, it gives you a world of options as it pertains to music. Because if you think about it, music has always been a part of your life, and you always knew where you wanted to go with music. And so here's the thing about college. College, it is a microcosm of life, but college is also a smorgasbord, right? And so what it does is it puts you in an environment where you can learn so much on a higher order of thinking about so many different things. And so even if you just look at attacking going into college for music, before you went to college, you had a clear idea what you want to do with music based upon what you have been exposed to. When you go off to college, now you're being exposed to more things in music that it may include things that you never knew existed, may include things that you never even thought about. And so for me, and I'm not, and whether you've gotten to that at this point in your college career or not doesn't matter. It's the point that it does open you up to those things.
So
go ahead.
I'm gonna agree with you in premise.
Oh Lord.
Whatever, man. I agree with you in premise. I just disagree is a harsh word for the way I feel a bit. I'm gonna agree in premise, but disagree necessarily in my situation. I don't think that 100% pertained to my situation. For me, first of all, I think high school was great for me when it came to music. Just even, I don't know, just having music being a backbone of my life.
But it's because you went to a specialty high school.
Well, I'm just saying, because I've been doing stuff with music for so long, I got to see so many different avenues. Things from like, I don't know, I started off playing piano, and then I got into DJing and producing, and I was in choir at school and saw how that whole, like, there's a community, like, there's so many different pockets of stuff that you don't really see until you're part of that. And so I think that was great for me, which I think I've seen, me personally, less of that in college. But I will say, when I'm talking about, I think college was the best option for me, I think that it was the best option for me more from, I guess, a matriculation standpoint, the way I was talking about it. A maturity standpoint, getting to see, I guess, life differently, socially, different things like that. I got to experience or gain new experience and exposure for life. And I got to mature at college, which is what I think college has served me almost, or I think they served me best in that way.
Okay. That was a period?
Yeah, that was a period.
All right. So okay, I can't disagree with you. And I won't disagree with you. But what I will say is I still don't think you scratched the surface of what college can do for you. But just by virtue of the fact that you kind of agree with what I said. And not that I need you to agree with me, but like, just say for instance, when you first went to college, you did so well on the I guess the SAT that coming in, they were saying, like, if you want to do praxis or do teaching, that you could opt out of the first practice and you just had to take the subject matter practice, right? Teaching before college, teaching wasn't. I mean, we talked about you educating people on, music and chords and that, based upon you being in choir and you being in music theory and you working on an album and you bringing in artists and you trying to help them to develop so that they can be all that they could be on the project that you were working on. But even, just having the ability to get the additional learning that will allow for you to go in the classroom, even if you don't want to. Because if you think about it, again, the intentionality, go ahead.
So this is why I'm getting back to, I agree with you in premise.
Okay.
I just don't necessarily agree for my situation. Because the same way, like, I feel like it's a great opportunity for you to get to learn new things, see different avenues, things like that, get to talk to professionals in the field. And so I agree with that. Right. I just didn't necessarily agree in my situation specifically.
I understand.
To that full extent.
I understand.
But I mean, this ain't about me.
You're right. It ain't about you, because where I was going with that was,
this is about the people.
This is what I wish you would have taken advantage of, or would take advantage of. Because, okay, again, if you think if you think about the way this whole thing is set up, the bridge, the barracks, or the dormitory, right? The choice is yours, but the preparation for the choice was ours. And so we made sure we prepared you so that whether you wanted to go to the bridge, the barracks, or the dormitory, you were primed to do either of the three. Okay? And so if I look at you going to now the dormitory, now that you're at the dormitory, is now making sure that which we have no control over now, but trying to get you to take advantage of everything while you're there, because once you leap from there, want to make sure that you have the option of doing A, B, and C, not having to choose A, B, or C. And so that's what I was saying. Like going off to college gave you that opportunity because it was a smorgasbord. And not only for me, and again, I don't have control over this, but in looking at it, saying you take advantage of A, take advantage of B, take advantage of C. Because for me, versatility is the key. It's being versatile and being put in a position where you can do any of them in case you need to or in case you want to. Go ahead.
I have anything to say.
You was gonna say something a few minutes ago. You done with that?
That was a few minutes ago. How you get?
Man, look. Anyway, so that's the whole point. So the bridge to barriers of the dormitory, that's basically what we were talking about. It was like, giving you and preparing you for every option that you were gonna need by the time you turned 18 or by the time you got to be a bona fide young man so that you can strike off on your own and do what you wanted to do. Whether it's put up your own shingle, whether it was go, put on, a military uniform, or whether it's what you did was to go off to college and further your knowledge.
I understand that. That's why I was trying to move past that. Ain't about speaking about it. For me, we're trying to explain the concept to the people. So I'm trying to move on to the concept.
All right, go ahead. Go on to the concept.
So another thing that I wanted to talk about, speaking on the concept, is we were having a conversation. I get the day that we did that podcast when we kind of brought up the idea of the bridge, the barracks, and the dormitory.
Mm-hmm.
Just talking about how to even phrase that. Basically, I guess a need for that point of your life, that portion of your life, this segment in your life.
A need for that transition?
A need for a bridge, barracks, dormitory moment in your life,
okay.
I think.
Okay.
And so just talking about what we were talking about, moving away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even in the movie we just watched.
What movie?
Was it Failure to Launch? What was it?
Yep, Failure. You talking about the one with Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah.
Okay, Failure to Launch.
Which is ironic.
Ironic.
But just a moment of you have to make that decision to step out on your own,
right?
So that you can build a foundation in which you can stand on yourself, instead of continuing to be comfortable in the foundation that was set for you.
Right. So, and I have a thought about it, and then there's so many different thoughts around that thought. So my first thought, personally, and this is what I've always subscribed to, and this was even before you were born, because I've been working with youth for a long time now. I've always felt like once you turn 18 or 17 or that graduation from high school, you should leave home. Mm-hmm. I've always felt that way. Male, female, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Girl or boy,
cool. It's male, female.
Okay, male, female. Like it doesn't matter. I think you should leave home. And even when I was dealing with high school students way back when, I used to tell their parents, at least let them go off to college for the first year. Mm-hmm. And I do understand that it's not a sum zero. Like everybody's not mature enough to leave home and go to college. Everybody's situation is different. But as a rule, I think it's important for a young adult to strike out on their own, so that they can feel their own metal, so that they can foot it, they can gain their sea legs. And like even we can use you for an example, T. Like I thought it was very important for you to leave home, and you did. And because of COVID, you had the opportunity to come back, and now we're at a different place. You and I, we talked about it a little bit with Tony Anthony Smith and them. We was talking about being that coach for you, and so now I'm able to sit back now and coach you as opposed to father you. But you going off from home served a very great purpose, because all the things that I was telling you, you were able to test the ones that you wanted to test. All the things that you thought you knew for yourself, you were able to test them and prove them for yourself. And so it makes you a more rounded and solid person.
I don't have anything to say.
Okay. And so I think it's very important that you set yourself up. And so the things that I was saying that were around that, because like everybody don't want to set themselves up. Some people want to just be, they want to live dependent, but they want to make independent decisions.
Yeah.
And that bothers me.
I can jump in there.
Go ahead.
So, kind of like almost in the same in what you were talking about. You felt like students should go off to college at least for that first year.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's necessary for you to remove yourself from that comfortable position.
Mm-hmm.
A comfortable remove yourself from a place where it becomes just easy to fall back on something instead of standing on your own.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right.
Because if you, I mean, that's just setting you up to prepare you to be independent later in life as you go into life. Because if you put yourself in a place where you're naturally just you fall back every time, then you're never gonna gain the ability to stand up on your own. So that's why I think it's important. No matter how far you go, where you choose to go, it doesn't have to be for school, whatever. You need to remove yourself from the just I guess that consistent, comfortable situation that you've been in, or a consistent situation, whether it was comfortable or not. Just go someplace to change your outlook.
Right. Grow up.
Right.
It is interesting, and I'm sitting up here. And I'm trying to figure out a way to say it and be politically correct. So if you think about,
you got to be PC for me.
Just for people listening to this, because I don't want them to think I'm going off on a deep end. But I was just thinking about it. I'm visualizing it. Like I was going to say, first of all, see, girls mature quicker than guys. That's what I was going to say, right?
I have a lot on that.
Okay, see,
that's a different story.
But what I was going to go with that is like I'm sitting back and I'm thinking of like, for some guys, it's like we don't want to grow up. And so we want to make those independent decisions again, but we want to be dependent, or we want to continue to hold our hands out for our parents. Go ahead.
Quick.
Say what?
I said allow me to rebut.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I agree, but I disagree.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, go ahead.
Which is always what I say.
It is.
I see both sides, you know.
Uh-huh.
Like Chanel.
Uh-huh.
What was I going to say?
Don't know.
Oh, I don't necessarily feel like girls mature faster than guys. I feel like they're pushed to mature faster than guys.
Well, that's where I was going to go. They do mature faster than guys, by the way. That's scientifically proven. But no, anyway,
you're talking about. I'm not talking about that. What the stuff, man? You're talking about like brain function, stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about. I feel like women have a certain societal pressure that pushes them towards being mature or more mature, more so than just naturally they want to take on a role,
more responsibility.
Responsibility. I feel like they're pushed towards that because they're expected not to play around like boys do.
I agree with you.
But I mean that's over there. That's something different. But I feel like I don't know. I feel like it doesn't really rely on like gender or anything like that. Well, everybody needs to make a step.
No, I agree with you. I agree. Well, that's my thing. I agree 100%. Like everybody needs to make that step. Where I was going to go with that though is this. So, and this is the PC part. This is the politically correct part that I was thinking about. So, if you think about it, so, this falls in a 2-parent household or a 1-parent household, single female head of household. So, for some reason, the mother and the daughter have a contentious relationship. Okay. Have a different relationship than the mother and the son. Right? And so the mother coddles the son, but like you were saying, she pushes the daughter to be responsible and not play around the way she will allow the son to do it, which is where I was going.
Say about that
all right, go ahead.
I think it's just, I think that's a gender thing.
What do you mean?
Not as far as based on your gender, but I think like as you, my father, to me being your son, I think that's a bond of that style of relationship versus a father with a daughter. And I feel like it's the same thing with a mother to a daughter.
No, you're absolutely right.
To a son.
You're absolutely right.
I was going to say to that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Which is why I was able to make that statement.
It's kind of like how you were talking about earlier, and like this is, you see this as a marker of a man, or like a man needs to do this,
yes, sir.
that.
Yes, sir.
So
yes,
when
sir.
you're talking to your son, it's like, all right, I'm speaking to you based on I was there. I know how to grow up and how you're supposed to grow up in this role, I guess. And so which you won't have the same as with the daughter,
right? Because as a
which
daughter,
is why a mother would be harder on the daughter.
That's where I was going. That's where I was going. That's exactly where I was going. and I was saying it from the perspective of because if I mean you have 2-parent households, and so you have that mother-daughter dynamic in a 2-parent household. But then more often than not, if it's a 1-parent household, it's a female head of household. Right. And you still got the mother-daughter dynamic. That's what I was saying. Mm-hmm. And so more often than not, the female or the young lady.
Whereas the dude become a baby. Yeah.
What? Huh? What'd you say?
I said, whereas the dude become a baby.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. So that was it.
I was jumping there.
Oh, you was jumping the gun. All right, cool. So yeah. So it's still, I guess we agree upon.
Role models are important.
Role models are important. Why are we in role models? But anyway, we agree to the fact that.
I was about to have a conversation about this.
Go ahead.
I think I'm having it tomorrow.
Okay, don't have it.
We're going to talk about it on Clubhouse.
Okay, on Clubhouse. You invite me to Clubhouse to talk about it? Dang, that's a long stare. So anyway.
All right. No. This is what it was. So it's based on something specific that you're not privy to.
It's based upon something specific that I'm not privy to.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a conversation continuing for something that happened that you weren't there for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, man, I can take rejection. I'm good.
All right. You rejected then.
All right, cool. So, but the basic premise of what we're saying, I mean, the Bridge to Barracks, the dormitory, it was a marker for a point of time in T's life. In T's life, yeah, we did. In T's life is when he hit 18. Mm-hmm. And it just so happens that him turning 18 coincided with the time for him to actually leave to go off to college. Which, I mean, if you get the book and read the book, man, it's a great read. I done told you can get on Amazon. But what happened during that time, he actually decided to launch out and leave early. Right. And so for me, it was a bittersweet moment, and it brought me to tears. It was a bittersweet moment because that meant that he fully understood and accepted his role or his responsibility or his charge. He fully understood and accepted his charge to strike out on his own, and he wanted to do it on his own merit, and he did it before he turned 18 or before August 11, 2018. Yes, he wasn't waiting around. And so that was, I mean, as a father, that was like that was the greatest thing because it meant that what we've been working toward for the last 16 years actually came into fruition. And so I was appreciative of that. But for the listening audience, if you're a parent, if you're a father or mother and you're looking at what the next few years of your child's life will look like, I mean, I think it's important to put that marker out there, and not just put the marker out there, but that marker is for you and everybody involved, so that you'll know that that's how much time you have to prepare them to make that decision, so that when it's time to leap, that they leap. And it doesn't mean that you snatch the rug from under him or her, because I didn't snatch the rug from under T. It was my invitation for him to make that decision to the choices that he had prevailing for him.
And I wanted to address. I feel like it's more of, I don't know, we're talking more about the concept than the practice. Mm-hmm. So not everybody may have had a get out date. Like me, I had a specific date. I had a get out date.
August 11, 2018.
Yes, 2018. And not everybody has that. And what I want to harp on is the fact that if you do not have that, you need to create that for yourself.
Yes.
And the get out date isn't something just reserved for child growing up, going through school, about to transition into adulthood. Some of y'all adults and y'all still ain't had to get out there.
That's true.
That's something that you have to decide on for yourself. Some of y'all are still in familiar situations because, I don't know, it's easier, it's comfortable. Where I think it's very crucial for everybody in their life, in their lifetime, to step out and make decisions to separate themselves from comfort in order to build themselves up with a solid foundation, a stronger foundation. Mm-hmm. So it's not just about, it might not even just be about your kid. It might be both of y'all.
Honestly, it might be about a job. You know what I'm saying?
True. Like, it could be so many different things. Life, wow. I just watched a video. Okay. Let me see how I can spin this to make this relate. So life has a way of setting you up to feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Lulled to sleep by a lethargic world. That's in another book I wrote.
Yeah, a bar.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Thank you.
So I was just watching an interview. It was like a couple hours ago. It was Dave Chappelle. And he was talking about, he was watching like Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, one of those. And he was talking about the Bushman. not the bushman, but like a bushman, like somebody living out in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
And in the times when water is scarce, how they find water. And they find water by digging a hole and putting salt in it, because apparently baboons are like, what's the word for it? They enjoy salt.
Drawn to salt? Crave salt?
One of those. It's like a treat to them. They like salt. And so what happens is they put the salt in the hole, and then the baboon comes and they put their hand in the hole and they grab the salt. Because they're holding onto the salt, their hand's too big to get it out of the hole. So then the bushman comes, they free the baboon from the hole, and then they put it in a cage and give it all the salt that it wants to eat. And so because the baboon is going to wrap around.
All right.
You looking at me like I'm crazy right now.
Good.
And because the baboon eats so much salt, it gets thirsty. So then what they do is they release the baboon, and the first thing the baboon does is run water, and they follow the baboon in water.
Oh, okay.
Dave Chappelle was saying in his situation with Comedy Central, Dave Chappelle show, and how he left the show, the stardom, the money, and all that, is he felt like in that metaphor, in that analogy, he was the baboon. Where the prize was like the money or the status, all of that. And so many of us, we lack on like, oh, this job sustains me. Let me grab this salt. Because you could easily get your hand out of the hole if you're smart enough to let go of the salt. And so I think one of the things which I think is, I won't say it's a huge problem, but I feel like it's a potential problem because I can't speak for everybody. But a lot of us, we do things like transition from maybe in the house to off to school to the job, all that on this path of this safe path almost, scared to lose the salt.
Right.
Is what my thing is.
Okay.
And so even though you may be sustaining yourself, you may be this, you may be that, you might have lost off on some things because you were scared to shake that foundation and that comfort of holding on to the salt, which is the point that I wanted to get to.
I mean, you got there. And
I usually do so.
Whatever. So yeah. So for me, I'll tell you some things that I've done in my life to help. Right. And so early on in my career, I used to do these things. They gut checks. I used to call them. I used to do gut checks, reality checks, or whatever you want to do, and then power move. And so every 2 to 3 years, I do a gut check or reality check, and now I make a power move because for some reason, something said in my psyche was after 3 years, you got to move. Like after 3 years, you maximize, or you should have maximized yourself in that certain position. Or at a certain job or wherever, and so you need to start looking for more. And even as I matured and started, actually working with college students and talking to college students and career prep, one of the things that I tried to help them understand, especially from when I was at my time in corporate management, realizing you can take a job, and when you take a job, a company will hire you a lot of times for a position. And that position has a responsibility. This company knew they wanted to do something, and you were the right person to come in and do it. The problem with that is, or the challenge with that is companies change visions every 3 to 5 years, right? They may not change their full direction, but like they change visions. They change the way they want to attack something or go about something because they got to move with the trends.
Right.
So the thing is, I always told people and so at some point, you gotta decide whether you want to sell out on yourself to follow the company's vision, or you want to sell out on the company to follow your vision. Right. And that's where my whole reality check thing came in. And so it's like constantly realizing that, if I look at myself as being a entity, a conglomerate, something that brings something to the table, I can find endless amounts of opportunity if I'm always true and authentic to myself. Right. Yes. And instead of actually just continue to follow after what's, the salt, if you put it that way.
Because the company, if you no longer fit the vision of the company, they'll easily remove you.
Oh, yeah, they'll easily remove you.
Yeah, we follow these companies around, changing their vision. It doesn't necessarily connect with what we're looking for, but we follow it because we're holding on to the salt.
Right. So that's the thing I used to do for myself when it came to like jobs or opportunity. Like just every 2-3 years, man, it's all about just that reality check and making a power move. And that has worked out for me so well. And so that's just one thing I just put out there. Is always making sure that we set something out there so that we don't get comfortable, so that we don't get lethargic. And the other thing, this was, maybe 10 years ago or so. I don't know. But I went through this point in time at the latter part of my corporate experience where I was really getting frustrated because I realized that I was putting so much time and effort into building somebody else's millions, right? Because I always tell people we've all made $1 million in our lifetime. The money just didn't go in our bank account, right? And so, like, I just got frustrated because I realized, like, I'm getting up 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, having to go into somebody else's job, but I wouldn't get up at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock to work on my own dream. And I came up with this concept, and it was called a Vavo shift. It was a Vavo shift, making your vacation your vocation. And so I took myself through a 30-day program of shifting my mentality from being a slave to a job to actually developing a way for myself and spending that time, like getting up early in the morning and spending time on myself. On my way to work, listening to stuff in the car that would build my mentality and stuff. And on my way home at night, doing the same thing, making sure that I was putting real time into my own talents and resources to put myself in a different place. And that whole thing was about shaking up my comfort zone.
Right.
Because if not, you can get the people will condition you. Let's see, what was it? Compensated above your ability to move is what I always say. Like, they will compensate you above your ability to move because they'll pay you just well enough that you don't want to go nowhere and you don't want to be ambitious.
Right. And so I don't know, do you have anything else?
That's it.
I was about to kind of wrap it up.
You got to wrap it up. That's it. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say about that is not even necessarily that we're talking about corporate world being bad or 9 to 5 being bad. We ain't being B. Simone's out here and all that.
No.
But it's about not only just working for your job, but also making your job work for you.
Yeah.
Being strategic in how you move through life. And we've been all over the place throughout this conversation. And I think that just speaks to the fact that the get out date is more than just something for somebody turning 18 or something for somebody about to matriculate from childhood to adulthood or that kind of thing. The get out date is a mentality, it's a mindset, something to focus on, a mantra, if you will. Have your mind on a get out date. Just set for a get out date mindset, basically.
Yeah, a get out date mindset. It just having the T's was the bridge, the barracks, or the dormitory.
Right.
Yours could be a new job, another stream of revenue, or going back to school.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it could be whatever it is, but just to find one for yourself.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Bum Podcast.
Bum Podcast.
Between you and me.
Between you and me. Holla.
Holla.